Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Show presented by SBR. Maddie Naples here is your host for the day. The slate is better than last night, but it's not a lot better, folks. So, just want to set expectations up front. We will hit you hard with some SEC action. We will front load the outline with especially some Mizzou action. We have two alumnus from the Missouri Tiger School, so we will make sure we hit on that marquee matchup of the evening. Jim is adorning his alumni very proudly. Shout out to that. And then we'll hit some A10 action on the back half. We have two teams returning from COVID, Drake and SLU, as well as all the other extra and off the beaten path inquiries from the chat mob. But before we begin, fellas, first, always SPRodds.com. Make sure to check out the odds page. Line value is king. We will continue to regurgitate that point. Also, SPRpicks.com/NCAAB. It's right above you. So conveniently posted there by our phenomenal graphics team. Check that out. All the content, expert picks, breakdowns, etc. You can find it in a one-stop shop fashion. But first, wasn't a lot to learn from last night, but there were some takeaways to be absorbed from the few games that were on the slate. I'll go to Mr. McKeon. Ky, tell us what you learned.
Number one, guys, I want to point out I'm rocking our new gear. Yeah, check that out.
Great pimp.
Pretty awesome
great pimp
stuff.
There. Great plug.
Apparel. Takeaways, guys. Iowa State was battered last night. They were missing Coleman, Lance, Johnson, and Young, all three starters. My question is, at what point do games get canceled? I'm all for playing the games as much as we can, but pretty unfair to the Clones, missing three starters due to COVID protocols. I don't know, guys. I don't know how we figure this one out. At least injuries mattered in this game. If you were fortunate enough to see the ISU news pre-tip, you had yourself an easy winner with Oklahoma State. But Jim, it's tough these days in the COVID scheduling environment to back some of these teams when we don't know who's in, who's out.
Ky, it was actually four starters because Trey Jackson, since returning from injury, has started the last two games. So yeah they were just completely ravaged. It was trouble in paradise for Iowa State, and it showed up as that game went on. First, I watched the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy yesterday, so I'm cheered up. I'm back out of my Packers nihilism. On the other hand, though, I do have a fun stat from last night. This is via @JaredBurson on Twitter. He's got a lot of great stat nuggets. I think he works for ESPN, so he's always pulling great stuff basically every night. But last night, Texas Tech was the first team to score 85 points and turn the ball over two times or less and lose. That is absolutely wild. They played almost a perfect offensive game and somehow still lost to West Virginia, who made their final 10 field goals down the stretch. I mean, that was a high-level basketball game. I did have that on the iPad as I was watching, the early parts of Return of the King. So I managed to catch some, but impressive performance by both teams. Shout out to Westphal for getting the win.
Yeah, Ky, you mentioned some of the scheduling issues with COVID. We saw in the Colonial with Delaware, they basically had, I think, a guy or two out with COVID, but also injuries, and they accommodated a scheduling change on the fly to make sure they could get their games in a semi-reasonable fashion. So you got to think if we start to see more of these. Last night, a ton of games were wiped off the slate. Maybe there's some ebbs and flows, some last-second adjustments on top of the makeup slots they already kind of have baked in there. All right, yeah, I didn't really learn much from last night. I guess Arizona State's just I don't know, whatever that team is right now. But check the box score did not look pretty. I won't rant about that. That was a big fat L for me. Hopefully, we will provide some more winners today. Let's get right into it, shall we? Missouri at Auburn. Mizzou Raw headed down to Auburn town. This is home Auburn. Home Auburn is always scary, especially when fueled by the electric Sharif Cooper, who has been inked all over the headlines. However, I'm looking at the undercard in this point guard head-to-head matchup. Your Xavier Pinson single-handedly carving up Tennessee last game. He's been a Jekyll and Hyde player his whole career, but he lifts this Mizzou offense to a new level when he is on fire. Jeremiah Tillman's starting to get going, staying out of foul trouble. You can tell it's bleeding over into increased confidence. Jim, what are you looking at here in this match between your alumnus and the Auburn Tigers?
Well, Matt, you said home Auburn is scary. Road Mizzou is also scary in the same way, where you put those two against each other. And I mean, that just situationally makes me kind of want to lean Auburn. Here's a little fun fact. Since Sharif Cooper debuted per Bart Torvik, this was on January 9th, you can filter his website by dates. Auburn is 21st in the entire country, but Mizzou is 10th. They have been outstanding lately. So it maybe a little crazy to see Auburn favored by 2.5 if Mizzou's a slightly better team. But it's just the situation spot makes me lean a little bit towards the home Tigers in this Tiger tussle. But I'm staying away. I'm going to cheer for my alma mater. I'm just going to keep it simple. No emotional hedge, nothing here. Ky, what about you?
Yeah, home Auburn, kind of a different beast, Jim. And we've talked about it ad nauseum. Auburn's just a different team with Sharif Cooper in general. 3-2 in the SEC with him. Their losses were Bama and Arkansas, pretty narrow losses. And they're 4-1 against the spread. So Sharif Cooper absolutely matters to this team. But like you said, Jim, give Mizzou credit. I already said last show, 5 Q1 wins. Them, Gonzaga, Baylor are the only teams in the country with that resume. Huge win over Tennessee. This Tiger team defends. I'm curious if they throw on Cooper. Is it Drew Smith, who's averaging over 2 steals a game, a little bit bigger point guard? I think he can stick with him a little bit. Advantage Mizzou inside for sure with Jeremiah Tillman. Overall, though, pretty evenly matched. Home Auburn, different beast, like I said. I lean Auburn in a Mizzou letdown spot, but I am staying away with Jim and watching my Tigers play.
Yeah, these are 2 white-hot teams. That's why I'm staying on the sidelines for this one. We've been talking about how important Justin Powell's return is for Auburn. He continues to be day-to-day, which seems like for weeks now. I believe it's a concussion or some sort of head injury there. A lot of the Auburn faithful talk about how important he is to alleviate some of the pressure and tension off of Cooper. With how well Cooper's been playing and with how well the other role players have elevated their game, clearly haven't skipped a beat without him. So when Powell comes back, look out. But for tonight, hard stay away for me. All right, next one here. I'll be honest, I was suspecting a late cancellation of the Red River Shootout given the COVID issues that are affecting the Longhorns in this one. Shaka Smart has COVID. He's currently in quarantine. From my research, it doesn't sound like he'll be coaching, obviously. I don't believe the school even named who the official interim is or how they're going to fix that situation. On top of that, you have potential guys who could be out for the Longhorns. Brock Cunningham tested positive. He was exposed to Greg Brown and Kai Jones, the 2 bouncy forwards who mean a lot for this team. Cunningham, replaceable. Jones and Brown, not at all replaceable. Very key parts there. So I think you have to find out what their status is, Kai, before you make any play here. But how does the overall, Shaka absence affect your handicap, or does it at all?
See, Matt, I'm not sure it does at all. And usually you take away for a coach, and maybe I'm throwing too much shade at Shaka. He's certainly had a good year this season, but I'm not sure his absence from the sidelines deters too much from this matchup. Texas is an incredibly talented team. 5-1 in the Big 12. A game back of Baylor is very impressive. But Oklahoma's on fire, man. 3 straight wins, huge win against Kansas. Hard time seeing Oklahoma score much on this insane Texas defense. The perimeter's been locked down. The interior's been locked down. It's doubtful Harmon goes supernova again like he did against Kansas. And the Texas offense has been pretty good. They are shooting 38% in conference play, and they actually lead the league in 3-point attempt rate. That surprised me. They're sort of a different Texas team than we're used to in the past. Jim, I actually lean Texas here at -4, 4.5, even without Shaka.
I lean towards Oklahoma a little bit in this one. Their lineup change, getting Elijah Harkless in there since Brady Manick had his little contact tracing absence, has been a revelation. They've been 4-0 against the spread over their last 4. With Harkless in the starting lineup, their defense has been lights out. They held Kansas below 1 point per possession twice, and then they held TCU and Kansas State to around 0.7 points per possession. I mean, they've just been completely nightmarish on that end with Harkless on the floor. So I kind of lean towards them, especially with a possibly shorthanded Texas team. Oklahoma's been playing well. Texas has been off a little bit, but the numbers just come down a little. It's too low. I wish I'd have gotten like 6 in this one, and I probably would have taken Oklahoma, but now it's, I think, down at 4.5. It's right about where I think it should be, so it's a stay away from me.
Yeah, we've talked about just the overwhelming length Texas presents up front. I think the emergence of Kier Koth as the enforcer inside for the Sooners is a great neutralizer to that. So I think he can prevent any sort of bloodbath on the boards inside. Again, another fence riding game for me. I will be watching from the sidelines. I think the lines of the odds makers, as Kai mentioned, very sharp lately. So I tip my cap to them.
Today they were, in my opinion,
very sharp.
Yeah, this is one of my least favorite boards of the year, just in terms of value. It's bleak out there.
That's always a sort of a bad omen. Usually means a poor night is ahead, just from my own anecdotal experiences.
Not at all. Actually,
I'm just kidding, folks. No, all locks tonight, all winners. What am I saying? Forget what I just said.
If you love the board, you don't do as well.
That's true. It goes both ways. On Saturdays is usually how that plays out. All right, another SEC showdown here. We're going to Alabama. Roll Crimson Tide will be playing host to Kentucky. A quick turnaround revenge spot potentially for Big Blue Nation if you're into that sort of thing. We don't always subscribe to that, but as we witnessed just, I think, 2 weeks ago, or not even 2 weeks ago, Bama beat the tar out of Kentucky. That was kind of the coming out party for Bama, specifically on the defensive end. We just saw them go to another level, just basically clamp down at all 5 positions. But they finally did look mortal, Jim, against Mississippi State last game. They were in control for most of the way. but they didn't cover that game. And it seemed like the way they were playing, they'd cover every game for the rest of time. Do you think they get back on track here against a young and sort of in disarray UK team?
This line's a little big for me. I mean, it's definitely representative of what happened last game with Alabama cleaning them out. And Herb Jones only played 8 minutes that game. He got hurt early and missed the second half. And then Javon Quinterly didn't play either. So, I mean, they were lacking shot creators, and still Kentucky cannot keep drivers in front of them. That is a major weakness for this team. If you have dynamic guards, they can get right by Kentucky to the rim. And, that just leads to kick out shooters for Alabama. So I'm a little bit concerned about them, but the number's a little too high. Kentucky has played a little bit better lately. They had the healing antidote of playing against the LSU defense, which next on our outline will be a treat for Texas A&M, hopefully as well. But yeah, I still lean towards the Tide, but playing without Jordan Bruner and possibly James Rojas again inside, that really limits them. They're pretty thin in the interior, and that's where Kentucky can possibly thrive in this one.
It's weird saying Alabama is emphatically better than Kentucky, because they are. They're 10th in KenPom. They're 8-0 in the SEC, guys. They have a huge conference lead. Like it's monstrous. A few games. Kentucky's 5-9, but they did beat LSU last game. Jim said they are getting better. They're trending up. I know we keep saying Kentucky's almost there. Kentucky's almost there. I'm not sure they're quite there yet against an Alabama team that's been just ridiculous. They were 14 for 30 against Kentucky in that first matchup. And usually I would call that just luck, but frankly, they do it every single game. Alabama has incredible shooters. I see no reason why they don't pour in a bunch of threes this game as well. Kentucky, 19 turnovers in that game. That probably happens again in this one. So I agree the spread's a little bit high, but I think the matchup totally favors Alabama again.
Yeah, Ky, you mentioned the turnovers. The last game against LSU was the first time we've seen Kentucky take care of the ball. Now, it was against that confidence-boosting defense of LSU that we'll talk about here in a second. So there's probably a big fat asterisk that needs to be applied to that. One note on Bama here, Javon Quinterly has been quietly effective the last 3 games, coinciding with the 3 games that Jordan Bruner has missed. Different players, Bruner more of a forward, just a versatile weapon at that position. Quinterly more of a bucket getter, but just having another weapon in the chamber has clearly helped this Bama team. So, it's just tough to bet against Bama. I actually did take Kentucky small here. I will not endorse it as an official show play because every time I do, the Big Blue Nation does not respond well in my favor. So do as I say, or don't do as I say, or don't do as I do. Anyway, let's talk LSU A&M here, and we can throw more shade on this LSU defense, which has been putrid, as it has been pretty much the last 3 years under Will Wade, shockingly, with all the athletes that they have there. They've looked shaky the last 3 games. 30-point loss to Alabama, not good. 13-point loss to Kentucky, a not very good Kentucky team, not great. Needed a late run to escape past South Carolina, who I believe is shorthanded in that game. But this is a nice little juicy matchup from an offensive perspective, Ky. LSU hangs their head on that side of the ball. We know A&M can be feisty defensively, but, man, they cannot score. It just feels like a different class of opponent here for the Aggies. I lean LSU. I think you're on my side here.
Yep, guys, best bet. LSU minus 5.5. Throwing it out there. Texas A&M is one of my least favorite teams in America, so I'm going to get that out of the way real quick. They're frustrating from a gambling perspective. They lost by 20 to a shorthanded South Carolina team earlier this month. Couldn't keep up with a struggling Ole Miss team. A&M's brutal. And Matt, what you said about their offense is the reason why I like LSU even more. A&M's offense is the worst in the league, and it's not even close. They're scoring 85.9 points for 100 possessions in the SEC.
Vanilla. Absolutely vanilla. They have no dynamic options. Horrible.
Only 5 teams nationally are worse than that for the entire year. If you spread it over the entire year, that's how bad they are doing in the SEC. That's very good for an LSU team that sucks defensively. They're not going to get torched on that end. LSU have 2 losses. I say good luck to A&M. They're going to need it. Great spot for the Tigers. I think they stop the bleeding and beat A&M, cover the spread tonight, Jim.
Yeah, Kai, the offense is. I highlighted that too. There are 4 factors that are like statistically significant, and Texas A&M is currently last in 3 of them in the SEC. Yeah. Like, that is pathetic. Like, you can't be bad at all things. You have to be good at something, but they are not. They are not, unfortunately, offensively. Last year, though, they did take LSU to overtime at home, and that was kind of a worse Texas A&M team, to be honest. Like, some of their ratings were. Their offense and defensive ratings were worse last year than this season. So Buzz Williams can possibly frustrate LSU, but I do think Cam Thomas has made them a different team. There's more dynamic perimeter scoring, and Buzz Williams really packs the paint. They force you to shoot over the top, and now LSU can kind of do that. So my number leans towards Texas A&M in this one, but I'm not playing it. The talent gap is just too wide. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, Jim, that's the matchup point I think that I was focusing on is A&M's ability to lure LSU into those dumb, inefficient shots. But with Cam Thomas, there's few guys in the country who I actually want taking that shot more. He is a phenomenal shot maker. So for that reason, I'm going to stay away. One more point just to put a bow on this Texas A&M offensive atrocity. They have not eclipsed the 60-point mark since January 3rd, I believe. So it's 5 straight games. This team cannot score. So if you want to, pick off a team total, LSU's defense certainly not the one you want to go with there, but it's just nothing. There's no signs of life for this Texas A&M offense. That's for sure. All right, let's go to some chat mob inquiries here. I did not appoint a chat czar as I usually forget to do, but you guys are always so proactive and take the initiative. I'm going to assume that Jim stepped up here. Jim, can I? Is that a correct?
I sure did, Matt. A lot of chatter early on at about James Ross was the first asked about it, but Tulsa at Temple. I believe this is the first game of the day. The favorite has flipped in this one. It started with Tulsa favored by about 2. People have bet Temple pretty hard here. Maybe getting Caleb Battle healthy as he's taken on a bigger role for the Owls has helped. I kind of lean towards Tulsa. I do think they should be favored by about a point or so, but I don't know. We'll see how this goes. I mean, it depends on if they can find Brendan Barry, the key shooter for Temple. That's a big part of Tulsa's zone is just allowing 3-point shots. So it depends on who takes them. Ky, do you have anything here?
Yeah, people in the chat were talking about this spread is fishy. I don't think Vegas or odds makers go out of their way to make fishy spreads on a game like Temple Tulsa. So I wouldn't use that narrative here. Temple's actually been pretty good this year. They've hung tough against tougher teams.
Yeah,
Tulsa is weirdly way better against better competition and sort of play down to the level they tend to play. So Temple, this game should be a pretty close one. Tulsa, I don't think is going to blow them out by any means. However, having said that, I do lean towards Tulsa. I agree with Jim. I think they should be favored in this game, not Temple. So certainly lean towards the Hurricane.
I agree. Kane should be favored. I'm going to probably hop in if it keeps climbing. So any out there betting on Temple, continue to do so. I'll come in with a little counter punch.
That's one thing I'd say about the potentially fishy line. I mean, this is a market setting the line at this point. After the line's been open this long, if it's been bet down, that's the market basically setting it, not really even the odds makers anymore. All right. We've had a couple inquiries for 2 big ACC clashes, Georgia Tech at Duke and UNC at Pitt. Those will come up in our best bet section, so we are going to holster those until the end of the show. Don't worry, we will get to them, fear not. Mark T. asked about SMU at Memphis. SMU in a very tough schedule week here where they play at Memphis versus Memphis and then at Houston Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. That is a challenge. Memphis is starting to show signs of life, Matt. Do you think they start to take care of business here with SMU?
Yeah, I made Memphis a favorite by a field goal, and I hated my numbers. I wanted to scratch it out and write in phony numbers just so I didn't actually have to consider taking Memphis against my beloved Ponies, who just got Tyson Jolly back last game, who was one of their best off-ball scorers last season. That's just another bullet in the chamber for this offense, which shares the ball so well, headlined by our king, King Kendrick Davis. Even though my value says Memphis, I just can't, in good faith, take them against the Ponies, Ky.
I lean towards Memphis as well. Maybe it's better to take SMU this game and catch them or fade them rather in the second game against Memphis or the game against Houston. As Jim said, they have a lot of games in a row here. But yeah, I lean Memphis. They're playing a lot better so far, guys, or lately rather.
Yeah, agreed. I just want to take Memphis on instinct, but Memphis has been better. I don't want to go against them as they're starting to figure things out.
Right.
Blake Steele asked about leg 2 of Southern Illinois at Indiana State. Ky, you had a big winner on this one yesterday. Are you staying away today? Or are you going back to the well?
I'm staying away, guys. Marcus Domask was out for SIU yesterday. So frankly, I didn't like my own best bet when that news came out. Southern Illinois played great. Lance Jones was awesome. He scored like 30 points in that game. I think Indiana State's probably the better side in the second matchup, even though the spread around 5.5 and 6 is a little bit high. And I'd probably still lean Southern Illinois from the number, if not for their injuries.
Yeah, I would lean Indiana State in the injury, but Southern Illinois completely controlled the game yesterday. It was a really impressive performance for them out of COVID. Larry Gibson asked about Mississippi State on the road at what seems to be a broken Tennessee team right now. Matt, is it Jaden Springer's absence that is causing this complete decline, or what's going on with the Vols here?
As deep as that team is, Jim, I think you're right. He's such an important piece on both sides. Defensively, he's a Swiss Army knife type guy who can guard multiple positions. on offense, he's one of the few creators this Tennessee team has. Vescovi has been playing hurt. Barnes was transparent about that after the game. You noticed against Mizzou, he just didn't have the same burst, and they really struggled. I mean, Mizzou defended like gangbusters. Let's give Mizzou credit there, but Tennessee really struggled to get any sort of easy shots. I think Springer's absence has been a big part of that. I like the Bulldogs here as a pretty big favorite. I just think they have two big-time shot makers that can keep you in a game. They're tough to really blow out. The back door is always open when you have two elite bucket getters like Molinar and Stewart. So I'll probably take the Bulldogs here. I believe it's climbed to.
It's like 9.5.
Down 9.5.
Like down 9.5. Okay. I drew my line at 10. You know what? I need some action today. I'm at 9.5. Boom. Lock it up. I'm in.
Wow. Mississippi State. There you go, Matthew. Good,
Stark Vegas. Stand up.
Way to get aggressive. And then the last one I've got for now, and then we'll shovel the rest towards the end. Richmond on the road at St. Joe's. I lean Richmond here. They were very bad out of their shutdown against LaSalle. Took that just deplorable outright loss at home to the Explorers. Can't do that if you're trying to compete for an at-large bid. But going on the road to St. Joe's is a decent way to get right. Yeah. Ryan Daly just got his hard cast off either today or yesterday and is still getting further evaluated as someone that has had thumb surgery and needed to get the hard cast off. It is not going to be ready to play right away. You need a little bit of rehab, get the strength back in that thing because it hasn't even moved in weeks. So I don't think he'll be out there. I lean towards Richmond figuring things out against a bad defense. Ky, do you have any lean here?
Yeah, Jim. Our thumb injuries in college, dislike it. Chris Mooney had a good quote. I'm paraphrasing a lot. Basically alluding to the fact that the LaSalle game was tough for them. They weren't very prepared. He said he's more confident in this St. Joe's game, the quick turnaround. They've got some practices in. I do lean towards Richmond in this game based on what he said. And also, I think Richmond's still a very good team despite that LaSalle loss.
Yeah, I will third that take, especially if Anthony Longpre and Greg Foster are still out. You have to assume Foster's out for this game. I'm just getting tired of checking the injury situation for this team. It's just my head's in a pretzel. But Longpre's a key guy. He did miss last. He's a big, important big guy, can shoot it. So you got to check on his status, I think.
Yeah, he's been in and out. So yeah, tough to really keep track of him. But all right, Matt, let's go back to the outline and we'll file the rest to later.
Yeah, Jim, we have back-to-back games here. Return of the COVID kids. Let's start off with Drake, the Bulldogs, who sucked our wallets dry for what felt like a month or forever to start the season. I guess the silver lining of the COVID shutdown was that we no longer had to fade them. But Ky, welcome back. The perils, the bear trap has been laid.
Oh, boy.
I don't mean to spoil your play here, but it sounds like you're being duped into another fade Drake play. Tell the folks why you're doing such.
I told myself I would stop fading Drake. I think I'm 0-4 fading Drake this year, guys. I'll be transparent.
You're definitely 0 whatever. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Drake is 11-0, guys, against the spread, 4-0 in the Valley, 13-0 overall. Long layoff. Haven't played since January 4th. I think that angle is a little bit over exaggerated a bit, especially with a team like Drake and SLU, who we'll talk about next. However, Missouri State's a tough team to play against coming out of a lockdown. Or after Loyola, you would not want to see Missouri State. They've been very good, 9-1 overall, 7-1 against the spread, almost as good as Drake. Drake's been completely owning the glass this year, top 15 offensive rebounding percentage. Missouri State is one of the best defensive rebounding squads in the country. They negate that advantage Drake usually has over other teams. Yeah. It's going to be very hard to score inside against Missouri State, so Drake is going to have to hope that their nationally leading 43.5% three-point clip continues, and it's good enough to beat the Bears. +4, this spread's gone up. I don't think Drake has an answer for Gage Prim or Isaiah Mosley. Yeah, I'm taking Missouri State +4 on the show, guys.
I think you're giving too much shade on Drake's interior defense. Darnell Brody's been a monster.
I probably am.
Transfer. I think they can guard in the post a little bit, and that's huge. I mean, they rank in the 81st percentile nationally right now in post-up defense, which is obviously fantastic. Brody himself is in the 89th percentile. Massive against Gage Prim. However, another thing that is negated in this matchup, Ky, is the pressure that Drake's been bringing. They apply like a 1-2-2 that sometimes traps, sometimes just slows the game down. Missouri State's taken pretty good care of the ball so far this year, although they haven't seen a ton of full court type pressure. I guess I lean towards Missouri State here, which feels crazy. I don't want to go against the Drake machine, but I'm happy to stay away and not actually go against them. I wish you the best of luck. Although, is it officially a show play, Ky, or no?
It is.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, tip the cap to you, sir.
Middle finger to the gambling gods.
Jim, we should have a right of refusal there, since it's technically as our show plays. There should be like a 2v1 veto power when it comes to shutting down a fade Drake play. But we will go to the bylaws and make those changes after today's show. Let's transition here nicely into, again, the second game with a COVID return situation here. I have a little stat for you. I did some show prep today, courtesy of the STL Post-Dispatch. Shout out to my brother for sending me the screenshot right before we went live on air today. SLU's shut down. St. Louis, the Billikens returning. They are hosting Dayton. They have been off for 33 days. That is the longest shutdown of, I believe, anyone in the country this year. That's
Cal Davis.
That's right. It was long because, Thanksgiving. The longest of any AP-ranked team. They basically broke down the results coming out of the shutdown for all AP teams who have been off. SLU's has been the longest. In the 7 incidents prior, though, the team returning is 5-2 against the spread. So it seems like the good teams have been able to adjust, to prepare. They've used the time off as more of a rest rejuvenation angle as opposed to the rust. I guess that's mitigated the rust issue. Ky, do you think the Billikens, your Billikens, are going to come out with the same vigor as some of the other precedents, or do you think they struggle here against a feisty Dayton team?
I lean SLU in this game. December 23rd is the last time they played. That's a long time, man. That's over a month. That's probably the longest layoff we've seen besides UC Davis in terms of D1 to D1 games. Dayton's been pretty average this year. SLU is just on another level in my opinion. I understand Drake might have the same angles here, but I think SLU's truly at a different level. Their experience helps them adjust out of this shutdown very quickly. I'm not really scared of Dayton running away with it. It's going to be a slow, low possession game. So certainly that favors Dayton at a +10, +9 spot. But I think SLU's going to force turnovers, pound the glass. I think it's a terrible matchup for Dayton, Jim, even with SLU coming out of the lockdown.
Yeah, the rebounding thing is the huge item for me. I think they can absolutely dominate on both ends of the court. I have a little birdie that told me that the SLU shutdown, obviously it's been long, but it was also bad. I like almost everybody in the program got COVID. It was apparently, almost a lot of the players, definitely Travis Ford had it. So that's not great. A little bit worrisome. Definitely not a team that was like constantly practicing during their shutdown.
Right.
However, the matchup does play up well to SLU. I'm staying away. It's just like I don't want to get too involved in this game without knowing exactly who's on the court for SLU, if they have any absences. And then, it's just Dayton's been feisty as a dog. I'm staying away. What do you got, Matt?
Yeah, Jim, I think that little nugget of intel is sort of why I am going to play Dayton here. The early steam hit SLU, surprisingly, from 9.5, I think, up to 10.5. I'm going to jump in here at 10 as an official show play. Confirm that's the updated line, please, folks. But Dayton coming off the most lopsided.
Why don't you confirm it?
My SBR page is not loading right now. I'm having some internet technical difficulties down here in Naples, Jim. Yeah,
we get it. You're in Naples.
The Floridians and their internet, Kai. The Floridians and their internet. You just can't trust them. Yeah,
it's currently 9, Matt. Just so you know.
Okay, well then I'm going to axe that then. Never mind. I'll keep my slate. I'll keep it short. But I had really good reasons for playing it at 10. Should I just skip those and continue to go to the next game here for the outline, since it's basically a moot point?
Oh, yeah, and it's already almost 7:30. Go for it.
All right, last game here. Butler at Uconn. Two teams trending in very different directions. Huskies, losers of 2 straight. Butler, winners of 2 in a row. Jim, I know you have a side lean in this one. I believe you're leaning toward the dog, pun intended. Tell us why.
Well, they're both dogs, Matthew.
I guess true.
That's true. I lean towards Butler. I'm not really psyched about it, so I'm not going to make an official show play. But Butler did kind of get rolled by Uconn without Bouknight already once, and that was at Hinkle, so that's definitely concerning. However, Uconn was really hot from the outside. They shot almost 50% from deep. Polley was 5 of 8 himself, basically controlled the game off the bench. Butler lost Chuck Harris during that game. He's been key for them. He's back now. I think Butler can keep this close and potentially even win on the road against the shorthanded Huskies, but I'm not going to back it officially. It just doesn't feel that right, and potentially Butler could struggle to score against the Huskies' really intimidating defense. So unfortunately, stay away. It's just going to be like a best bet only day for me. Ky, do you have anything here?
Butler's kind of back a little bit. 2 straight wins. Creighton at DePaul. I mean, Bulldogs getting their swagger. UConn's dropped 2 straight. I think the Bouknight injury, guys, is starting to pile up. You saw guys step up early, but he can't be out for this long and UConn be successful. I just don't think it's possible. UConn did beat Butler earlier this month without Bouknight. 10 for 21 from 3 certainly helped that game. I do think Butler's better equipped this time around. They're an excellent rebounding team. Should deter the easy scoring avenue the Huskies have had against other squads without Bouknight. So the spread does feel just a tad low, but I am leaning towards Butler.
Yeah, both teams I'm sort of struggling to figure out right now. UConn, I think, had some guys emerge without Bouknight. Martin and RJ Cole especially has been phenomenal there in the backcourt. But Jim, you mentioned this earlier. Jair Bolden, phenomenal shot maker for Butler. He's a guy that can get you a bucket late in the shot clock when the offense breaks down. We saw him do this
bad shots, but sometimes he makes them.
Yeah, exactly. Very often, it seems like. We saw him do this in South Carolina. He's just continued that this year. I don't think that's a fluke. I just think that's a special skill set in his arsenal. This game gets tight down the stretch. I think his shot making could be the key if you're looking to bat Butler, but I am not. Again, this is another one I will be watching from afar. All right, Kyle, best bets. Let's run through them real quick, and let's recap all their plays you have spewed out so far.
Yeah, guys, I got LSU -5.5 as my best bet. Yes, I lost a little value this morning. That's what happens when we do a live show, guys. No big deal. Right. Missouri State +4 is my other play. That's right, Drake. I'm looking at you. I've made this threat before and I've lost. So, Bears, don't let me down. +4 for Missouri State.
Attaboy, Ky. All right, my best bet. I mentioned we were going to talk Duke and Georgia Tech. I'm taking Georgia Tech first half +3 here.
Wow, I love the first half play. Let's go. Exotic here.
Duke has obviously struggled against the spread this year. I think they've only covered one game, that being at Notre Dame. Georgia Tech's been really feisty. They were super impressive against Clemson in a game that I was on the Orange Tigers, and I was just very impressed by Moses Wright dominating the paint. I think he does that again in this one. Complete animal. And the experienced veteran backcourt for Georgia Tech's really impressive with DeVoe and Alvarado. And Duke is, I have a Duke fan, Russell from Seconds to Madness, that clued me in on this, that Duke's just been really bad first half, especially. So yeah. I am going to go with that trend, especially with my best bets. Outright struggling. Yes, Andre, they have been poor lately. I acknowledge that. That's okay. I'm going to try to bounce back here with the Georgia Tech first half. Let me confirm. I would love to get 3.5. So let me see what it's at. Matt, go recap your bets, and I'll let you know what I got.
Circle back to it. Yep, and Jim, I think it's smart, by the way. I think the gambling gods reward such sacrifices. You go with the smaller slate. You don't get too greedy. Well, we have the lights out here. I'm going to go dark here for the final 2 minutes.
Oh, it is 3.5. So I'm getting that Georgia Tech first half +3.5.
Noted. Write that one down. Jim, I'm going for an ACC bout for my best bet as well. The North Carolina Tar Heels. Was very impressed with their effort against NC State. We've been hammering home the Anthony Harris X Factor angle. He had 10 points in 12 minutes in that game. So I just think you get more and more of him. The balance he restores to that backcourt, front court imbalance that was there to start the season. That's now being corrected. Listen, Pitt's been really good, but I think we maybe overreacted to the Duke game. They were very open about how
I didn't overreact. I was on Wake Forest and they won outright. So how dare
I missed the strike on Wake Forest. Point is, we sniffed it out, Jim. We know this Pitt team is still just Pitt, that it can be a little bit erratic. Yes, they have two great players, Xavier Johnson and Justin Schimppenny, but they're still very vulnerable. And I think this is a great spot to pick them off against UNC, who should overwhelm them inside. Again, I think the key here is Anthony Harris. Look for him to play closer to 15, 20 minutes, hit some big shots, facilitate the offense. So the Tar Heels are my best bet. My only other one on the slate is Mississippi State +9.5, since I missed the Dayton value. So a quick twofer for me.
Beautiful. All right, quick other chat questions. Let's hit Central Michigan at Buffalo. I don't have a lot here. I made this number exactly what it was. Either of you have anything?
Me too, but I can't back Central Michigan, so lean Buffalo or nothing.
Yeah, Buffalo or nothing. Feels like this game could be super high scoring. Just a lot of back and forth ping pong with the athleticism and the pace that both teams want to play at.
Yep, agreed. Staying in that conference, Western Michigan at Ohio. Western Michigan was down 3 key players last game due to contact tracing with COVID. I like Ohio if they are out, but unfortunately we have no information yet if they're going to be out or not. So make sure to keep an eye on that, folks.
Yeah, Western Michigan cracked against Akron late in the second half, fell apart badly. So I think that was sort of that collapse might come into the mental psyche if this game gets a little dicey late.
Yep, agreed. It's just a different team without B. Artis White and Titus Wright out there.
Titus Wright, yeah.
Fairleigh Dickinson at St. Francis, Pennsylvania at the extra board here. I lean towards the underdog, Fairleigh Dickinson, but another team that was missing key dudes due to contact tracing. They were missing big man Elijah Williams and Pierre-Olivier Racine. So would like to see them back in the lineup before officially taking them.
Yep, staying away for injuries, Jim, but the number leans towards FDU, all healthy.
Okay, I believe that's it. On the game questions.
Akron, Eastern Michigan was one that was asked, Jim, but I had really no take in that game. I kind of lean towards the under, but
I think 9 straight meetings between these two have gone under, but this is a different kind of Eastern Michigan defense there in the sense that it is not good anymore. It's pretty bad. So a little bit nervous there, but Eastern Michigan took care of business last time against Akron, beat them outright. It kept it very, very low scoring. So lean towards the under and the dog.
I took the dog small, and I took it small because it's still Eastern Michigan, and they're not a team to be trusted. But Akron's, they're vulnerable. I think they've shown a little bit of come back down to earth after their impressive win over Toledo. So I do lean the dog slightly here, Jim.
All right. I think that's it for the chat, man. You can wrap up the show.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. Maddie Naples will sign us off here. Again, SPRodds.com. Check that out. Always have that up when you're making your bets. Make sure you're line shopping, especially in states where you have multiple books at your disposal. SPRpicks.com/NCAAB. Again, the link is right above my forehead right now, my sunburned forehead, I might add. Hopefully to get that resolved today. But check us out tomorrow. Thanks again for tuning in, folks. We will see you back same time as always. Good luck tonight.